Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Safety and Finance Committee meeting of Monday, June 21st, 2021. Roll call, please.
Albertson? Bueller?
Here.
Hoyer?
Here.
Pauline?
Here.
Lallam? Manti?
Here.
Rademsky? Absent? Roby?
Here.
Billhauer?
Here.
Y?
Present.
Thank you.
Right, the first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Have a motion by Holine and a second by Manti. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 4 is public input, and this is the time set aside for anyone. Is there anyone online that wants to speak? There's no one in the room. So, seeing no one's here, we'll move on. Item 5 is approval of agenda, and before we do that, I would like to add item H, approval of detour agreements, and I'll read the full title here. Approval of the detour agreements associated with the Highway 212 Phase 2 project number 1802 with the South Dakota Department of Transportation and authorizing the mayor to sign all related documents.
So moved.
Okay, so this is going to be item H on the end of the agenda. So the motion is to approve the agenda. And I have a motion by Billhauer and a second by Y. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 6 is the regular agenda, and item A is approval of a haul road agreement with J&J Earthworks related to the relocation of a gravel stockpile within the city of Watertown, authorizing the mayor to sign all applicable documents. Have a motion by Hoyer and a second by Holine. And I will ask the Public Works Director, City Engineer Heath Von Eye to tell us about this, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. J&J Earthworks is requesting approval of a haul road agreement to be made with the city. What they were proposing to do, as I've shared on my screen here through Teams, is to remove a gravel and crushed rock stockpile located along Willow Creek Drive. The gravel and crushed rock will be transported using Willow Creek Drive and a portion of Highway 212 and 31st Street Southeast. I've got a couple of maps I'll show for context. So this area here to the south of this map is Highway 212, and this is Willow Creek Drive. And there's a gravel pile located here within this blue shaded area. The proposed haul route is outlined in this purple coloring here on the road map, where J&J would haul the material north on what I believe is 26th Street, and then it'll get on Willow Creek Drive and 212, and then follow 31st Street north up to J&J's site. As the council may recall, this gravel stockpile has been a item of discussion in the past. We've talked about the developer putting erosion control measures on it, being responsible for it. The developer has had intentions to utilize that stockpile within their subdivision, and they've used portions of it as a couple of the lots have developed in this area. And over time here now, they're realizing that the material could be a better use and get expended more quickly in other means, and that's where J&J Earthworks has come into play, proposing to take the stockpile off the hands of this developer. I've discussed this with Matt, city attorney. We talked and contemplated whether they were able to do that under the state mining laws and the city mining ordinances, and he and I were both of the understanding that yes, we could allow them to remove this mine material from this location to another location. And with that, we've compiled a haul road agreement per the mayor's direction, and which makes sense for us to preserve our streets and the haul road that they select to use. So what we would do is inspect these roads for their condition prior to the hauling. And then once the hauling is ceased, we would go out and re-inspect them, and this agreement is simply the contractor acknowledging they'd be responsible for any premature road distresses or anything of that nature that may occur. With that, I'll stand by for questions. Justin Peterson, the Assistant City Engineer, is online with us too. He helped draft this document.
Okay, Councilman Hoyer.
Heath, can you just explain the language in number 2 there where it says estimates and projections concerning loss of useful life will not be considered in determining the restored condition of the city street system?
Absolutely. So what that is saying is we're not going to hold the contractor responsible for something that's not physically identifiable at the street surface, is really what that's saying. If we're not seeing road cracks and alligator and things like that that they maybe have caused, that if there's truck traffic will over time reduce the longevity of a street. That's just a given fact. It's the number of truck loadings that a road incurs over its life cycle. The more truck traffic it sees, the shorter the life cycle. What we're saying in there is we're not going to get into any calculations to presumably calculate what kind of a reduction in life cycle the traffic may has caused, but we're just going to focus on any physical distresses that they may cause damage to the street with.
Councilman Y?
Thank you, Mayor. Heath, is this like a week project, a month project, a 2-year project? And then a second question, will there be like a trucks entering signage to kind of give people an idea that trucks might be coming out of there?
Yeah, two very good points, one of which I'm glad you brought up because we intended to cite that on the bottom of this page I have shared. I think it's page 2 of the agreement. No, page 1 of the agreement. There is a blank there to fill in that this haul road agreement will expire X number of days from the date of issuance. So what the contractors propose and would like to do is have this good through July 31st. They anticipate being able to get the stockpile removed in that amount of time. So a little over a month, it'd be roughly 40 days from now, looking at the calendar. And if the board were to be agreeable with that, that's what we'd write in on this agreement and have it executed in that way. So that helps answer your first question. And your second question, we can certainly put any temporary traffic control signing that the council and staff would feel appropriate. That's also a great consideration. Even if it's as simple as trucks hauling or trucks entering, something of that nature.
Yeah, and whoever makes that determination, I'll just leave it up to them to make that, but I think it'd be a good idea.
All right, thank you. Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Heath, are we going to put a speed reduction, a temporary speed reduction on the road, do you suppose, at that time?
We have not proposed that. We could through any action that, again, the council deems appropriate, but we have not proposed that at this time.
Do we know at the peak how many trucks per hour we'll be seeing?
No, we did not get that detailed information from the contractor.
Councilman Lallam?
Thank you, Mayor. Heath, on this one, how did we determine that was allowable, since I was under the assumption that they were not allowed to remove material from that site?
Yeah, I would defer to my esteemed colleague, Matt, here to my left, if he could chime in on between the city ordinances and the state statutes and the language between the both that we felt it was appropriate.
Well, regarding the mining issue, they were cited with mining in violation of our city ordinances, and I believe the fine ended up being $1,000. But the actual crime itself, the misdemeanor itself, is the act of digging in pursuit of monetary gain. So that crime occurred, and they were punished for it. Yet this pile remains of material that has just been sitting there. So, in my opinion, they've already been penalized for the crime, the violation they committed, and we were just left with the remnants. And so this seemed like a productive way to dispose of those remnants.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Y? Okay.
Don, speak
Okay,
first.
Councilman Roby?
You didn't specify any weight limits?
No, I don't believe that, unless they're generally referenced, to not exceed.
They'll have load limits in accordance with our regulation, standard load limits. We won't have additional load limits.
Yeah, correct. It'd be your conventional.
Councilman Vilhar?
Just to clarify to what you said, Matt, that the perpetrator is not J&J and we're speaking a different entity here. So if public's watching this, I don't want them to think that J&J is the one that committed the crime here.
Yeah, correct. It was the landowner that had done the digging. That's correct.
Councilman Y.
Thanks, Mayor. One question, so will they be able to go below ground level, or will it, when they remove this product, how deep can they go?
We didn't specify specifically a depth, but I guess, and we could clarify that in the agreement too. My interpretation of the hauling of the stockpile would be the physical presence of the stockpile at the surface and above, would be my interpretation of that.
That's a
And,
good question, though.
Yeah,
So it will stop at grade. That's the assumption.
yeah.
If it goes beyond, do we want to make that a requirement that we stop at grade? That's a presumption.
Yeah, we can definitely add that to
Understood, understood. Councilman Hoyer?
If we're specifying that, do we want to make sure that everyone is tracking the weight limit of what they should put on that road? Because I guess the only red flag I see on this is just the concern that we might overload that road a little bit and don't want to go down that rabbit
No,
hole.
we do not. We do not. Want to make sure that they're adhering to all legal load limits.
So Mayor, if, again, with the committee's approval, we could add an item 6 to specify that the limits of the excavation shall only be to at grade, to remove the stockpile that's at grade and above grade. And then add a number 7 to ensure that the contractor adheres to the legal load limits for the entire hauling process.
And if do you want to put a condition in there with the street superintendent, if he notices that there's an issue developing and the pile is still there, that additional restrictions might be applied, like less than legal load limit, if that's need be. I mean, that, if you're concerned about that, we're assuming that the roads will take it. We're going up 31st Street. And the haul route conditions apply to 31st Street as well. Because that road's not in good condition now. So are they restoring it to its poor condition, or are they rebuilding it to a better condition?
It'd be a restoring to the existing condition.
Okay. Councilman Bueller.
Thanks, Mayor. Any concerns with DOT for the 212 segment of this?
I will call on Justin. I know Justin and I spoke with that. I don't know if he's reached out specifically to them. Typically, the DOT, the state highway system, they're not going to bother anything like this, even if it is repetitive, because assuming, again, that the trucks are within the legal loading limits, they definitely build their highways to withstand that. But we can, if we haven't already, Justin, could you confirm?
We haven't reached out to the DOT at this time, but we can.
I think you should at least get their acknowledgement that we're doing this and that they don't have any issue with it.
Well, potentially they might require some signage as well, for trucks entering type of thing.
Right? Councilman Lallam?
Do we need to make that adjustment on that, or are we just gonna do it on the assumption that 6 and 7 are gonna be in there?
I guess I would advise that you guys make that formal amendment to the motion, and then the DOT contact staff can take care of that if you're okay proceeding that
And
way.
what about the, if any additional requirements are needed? Who will make that call? Do you want to make that call?
Yeah, I think under number 7, we could have a contractor shall adhere to the legal load limits or a reduced limit under any inspection and requirement of the city throughout the hauling process. Something along those lines that meets that intent, where Rob and I could together take a look at that and see if we need to reduce the load limits.
I think that's a good idea. I don't expect anything. That Township Road is not in great condition, and if we start to see an issue, we don't want to make it worse, for sure.
I'm good with making that amendment as long as Councilman Helene is also good with it. For me, it's just, I don't want to see a bunch of curb and gutter get destroyed and then we kind of leave it, because we've had some sidewalk get kind of toppled here on a couple projects here recently, so,
We have, yes.
yeah.
Are you good with that?
Yeah,
Councilman? You were the second. According to my notes. Anyone else? Okay, we have an amended motion then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. All righty. Item B is approval of a quote award for the 2021 pavement rehabilitation crack sealing project number 2106 to Asphalt Surface Technologies Corporation in the amount of $48,656.
So moved.
Have a motion by Albertson, and I didn't catch the second. Councilman Lallam, second by Lallam. And I'll ask Public Works Director Heath Von Eye to tell us about this, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm pulling up a map of this project, but this is a quote award. It's under the statutory bid limits for this work. What we've done here this fiscal year, as you recall, we've had to shift quite a bit of money in the CIP to our 10th Avenue reconstruction project. So we had initially thought of not performing any crack sealing or chip sealing this year. We ended up settling on and keeping $50,000 worth of of money of funding in the CIP to perform some crack sealing, and this is the map of those areas, generally speaking, that we would be performing that work on. So we went out for quotes. We received some quotes and found some favorable to be within the budget, and are proposing to go with Aztec Incorporated, and they perform the crack sealing up to the contract amount in their bid. And we'd stand by for any questions on this one.
That's, I Aztec, that's their short name. I was not recognizing their long name, but we have worked with them before.
Correct.
So this is a contractor we've used in the past. Any questions, council? All right, seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item C is approval of a bid award for the miscellaneous concrete repairs project, project number 2110, to Gray Construction in the amount of $217,700, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents related to the project. Have a motion by Hoyer and a second by Mantee, and I will ask the Public Works Director to tell us about this one too.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a little bit later bid award, but we've finally made it through the design phase of this project. If you recall, a year or two ago in the budget process, we've taken our concrete projects, which have included curb and gutter, valley gutter, concrete patching on some of the concrete streets, and sidewalk and corner curb ramp, ADA ramp installations. And we've combined them into one miscellaneous concrete repair project. The last 2 years, we were unable to obtain bids for those projects just due to the sheer volume of work that people had going on. They didn't want to entertain taking on the city's contract. This year, fortunately, we have received a bid. That's the good news. The bad news is it's a little over budget. We have $150,000 in funds that we've earmarked for this miscellaneous concrete repair project. However, what we're proposing to do, because of the last 2 years' backlog, is go ahead and award this contract for the full $217,700. If we were to do that, it would of course mean supplementing this budget by the roughly $67,000 that it's over. And I've talked with Kristen, the finance officer, about that option, and really it's simply a numbers game in determining, do we want that extra $65,000 to come to this project for these efforts, or keep it in the 212 fund for other efforts. Just from my standpoint, from the engineering office, we felt it would be appropriate to ask for it to put towards these efforts. Again, because of that backlog, we have quite a few known concrete repair locations throughout town that have been brought to us either by citizens or some of the council members yourselves from your constituents. And so that would be our recommendation. If the council does not want to supplement that additional $65,000, The other option we have is going ahead and awarding this bid amount in full, but we would reduce the contract quantities throughout the work and make sure that it comes in at the budgeted $150,000 level. That would be the other option to proceed with.
And I don't know the numbers exactly, but we are above our projected revenue collections so far this year. And Finance Officer Kristen Bobzien could verify that. I don't know what amount we are tracking above, but it appears that we will land with greater revenues than we were projecting. So this could come out in the wash, but she's going to have to make an adjustment in the budget. So Kristen, could you address that?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we are tracking, I don't have the exact numbers, but the revenue is projecting higher than what we budgeted for in terms of the revenue. We are only about 4 months in with what the state's provided us so far, but so far it's looking good. In terms of the $65,000, we do have that amount of funding in our unreserved fund balance. The only thing there again that the council needs to be cautious of is we are just starting some of our bigger projects. And we know how sometimes the change orders and stuff can happen. But all in all, for $65,000, I'm not overly concerned with being able to provide that out of the unreserved fund balance.
Thank you. And I'd like to just toss out there for your consideration how difficult it is for us to get bids for concrete repairs. More years than not, we don't even get a bid. So the fact that we got a bid is, even though it's a high bid, is something to consider. There's no guarantee we'll get a better bid or even a bid next year.
Mayor, I would add too, I apologize, this isn't letting me zoom in, but all these pink dots on here are the locations throughout town that we're performing concrete repairs. And again, these are range in a multitude of curb and gutter to valley gutter to some concrete street patching to sidewalk or ADA ramps, all the things concrete related. One of them of significance I wanted to point out is over on Willow Creek Drive. With the new development coming in for the Aldi food store, apologize for the delay, it's always slow on the Wi-Fi in here for some reason. But we're expanding an effective and appropriate length of turn lane when you're going northbound on Willow Creek Drive to turn westbound onto 8th Avenue. That'd be directly west of Hobby Lobby. I'm not sure why it's not pulling up for me, but
Is the median northernmost point changing?
that will shift a little bit, but we will retain a median, and my map would have shown that here, but we'd retain a median all the way down through the extent of this expanded turn lane of at least 3 feet wide. We got a proposal from HDR Engineering in our Transportation Master Plan update that gave us a good solid design to run with, and so staff has put that into a draft, drafted the design into our plans for this project. And it allows the appropriate amount of queuing and stacking for that left turn movement to safely get off Willow Creek Drive onto 8th Avenue.
Good.
Due to the increased traffic that we're going to be seeing there with Aldi and then the stores subsequent to come after that.
Excellent. That's good to know.
But the raised median will still be intact, just a narrower version of it.
Okay.
So that other turn movement into Hobby Lobby will still be prohibited.
Yeah. And that median is a safety feature in
Correct.
the roadway. So it's
Correct. So that is part of this miscellaneous concrete repair project. So if anybody saw any work going on out there, I wanted the council to be aware that that was part of this.
all right. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Vilhar?
Not a question concerning this, because I'd be all in favor of moving forward with this, but I guess just to follow up to what Kristen said. I know, Kristen, you broached the subject here, I think probably in some emails within the last couple of months about getting together and reviewing what we are going to be using or designating our most recent CARES Act funding. And I think it's, this is just an example too. I think it's time we do sit down and have that conversation to prioritize or designate what we are going to use that funding for.
All right. Any other questions or comments about this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item D is approval of a professional services amendment for services associated with the Animal Care Facility, project number 2029 with TSP Inc., increasing the contract amount by $7,500 to bring the total contract amount to $91,864 and authorizing the mayor to sign all necessary documents related to the contract. We have a motion by Hoyer.
Second.
And a second by Y. Again, I'll ask the Public Works Director, Heath Von Eyde, to tell us about it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This compensation adjustment is for additional services performed by our consultant, TSP, on the animal care facility out at the zoo. The reason that drove this request from them is for the owner-initiated proposal request that we had asked for their assistance with. Those included some requests for water service revisions to the plans, some additional electrical receptacles throughout the facility, some additional concrete paving, and some caging installation. And the consultant's assistance has varied on any one of those items in different ways, but this compensation accounts for their time and efforts to help us with those items. We have the consultants online with us tonight, along with TK, the Park and Rec Director, and then Justin, the Assistant City Engineer, who are all a lot more knowledgeable on the specifics behind this than I am. So we'll all stand by for questions.
All right, thank you. Questions, Council? Doesn't look like anyone has questions.
Are we repairing the duck tracks in the cement?
I think those are cute.
They better stay,
They
actually.
should stay.
Yeah.
You see that a duck walked in. What were they saying about that? Something cute, like, the concrete quacked.
Yes, that was it. Yeah, it was great.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item E is approval of change order number 1 with Crestone Builders, Inc. for the Animal Care Facility, project number 2029, for a time extension of 21 days and $0 net change in contract price. I have a motion by Helene and second by Albertson. And Heath, want to tell us about this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The main brunt of this change order, well, I'll step back. You'll see the subsequent item is also related to the same facility. This is being change order number 1. We also have change order number 2 following this one. The reason they're both on this agenda is that this change order number 1 was slated for the last meeting. We had to pull that just to talk through some more details with our consultant on that change order. So they both got stacked up now on this meeting. So that's the clarity on why there's 2 in one meeting. And to explain change order number 1, we have a multitude of adds and subtractions as far as the costs go, and they've come out to a net 0 change order. So really the brunt of this one's to effectively extend the time of the contract for 21 days. That 21-day addition is verified and justified by the contractor and the consultant's review, and have found that to be appropriate. And so, again, we'll stand by for any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item F is approval of change order number 2 with Crestone Builders for the Animal Care Facility, project number 20-29, for additional concrete paving and $0 net change in contract price. I have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Helene. Heath, tell us about this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This change order number 2 also is a $0 net change, but was appropriate to bring forward because it's specifying within the contract where the money in our bid allowances gets placed. So when this project was bid, we had a number of allowances, I think maybe a half a dozen of them, of certain dollar amounts and for specific items. And as the project has evolved and we've come close to the nearing the end of it, we've now specified some specific needs that Park and Rec feel are appropriate, like the addition of some concrete. And so we're simply within that contract telling the contractor where these allowance funds are to be spent. And the brunt of this one really, I believe, was for the additional concrete in front of the animal care facility. Again, Terry's online and Justin as well, and we'd stand by for questions.
All right, thank you. Questions, anyone? No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item G is approval of construction change order number 1 final with LL & Sons Excavating, Inc. for the 3rd Avenue Northeast Storm Sewer Project, project number 1929, for an increase of $260.17, bringing the total contract amount to $34,961.92.
So moved.
Motion by Helene and a second by Bueller. And Heath, tell us about this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more of a formality in the last change order and first and final change order for this project. This is the 3rd Avenue Northeast Culvert Replacement Project out east of 19th Avenue, 19th Street. And 3rd Avenue, so off the northeast corner of the Dakota Commons subdivision. This project is going to be, it's reimbursable through FEMA, so we'll be working through that paperwork here once we get everything finalized on our end. But the project came in well under budget. I believe we have $50,000 earmarked for this work. The total contract price with this change order ends up being just under $35,000, and just accounts for all the final planned quantities and some adjustment of quantities on additional riprap and materials used in the project. So with that, I'll stand by for questions.
Excellent. So how much is reimbursed by FEMA?
I believe it's the full amount, and Kristen or Justin could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe this is all reimbursable.
That's good. They're not correcting you, so that must be right. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Okay, item H is approval of detour agreements associated with the Highway 212 Phase 2 project, number 1802, with the South Dakota Department of Transportation, authorizing the mayor to sign all applicable documents. Have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Hoyer. And Heath, tell us about this one, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a detour agreement with the DOT. This is related to Phase 2 of the Highway 212 project. As we all know, next year they're starting the full-blown reconstruction of Highway 212 from Highway 81 all the way east to 19th Street. And I've shared my screen to get a simple map here that represents the detour route. Now, Phase 2 of the DOT project, again, runs from 81 over to 19th Street, but they have that broken up into 2 phases within Phase 2. So this red hatched area is to be known as Phase 1. This is the detour route that we are executing today upon the council's approval with the DOT. They would have through traffic detour on 4th Avenue and 11th Street, and then have a business detour route that occupies Jensen Avenue and an unimproved portion of 11th Street. This unimproved portion of 11th Street is talked about in detail in the agreement, where the DOT is proposing to pave a temporary business detour route through what's apparent to be right-of-way along that drainage way. This would be in the area out east of Montgomery's Furniture, immediately adjacent to that drainage way. And again, this would be the business detour route for traffic that's wanting to get to any of the businesses on the south side of 212, which would include the mall. And engineering and streets have reviewed these documents along with city attorney and are recommending it for approval.
So you can see on the map there, I'm not sure if people are clear where this actually is. I don't know how hard it would be to bring up the GIS, but it's essentially that Quonset hut metal building. It goes by that, and the extension of 11th Street. And then I'm assuming it goes on the sewer access road that's between what used to be the Sears building and Roby Creek?
It would terminate right there at Jensen Avenue. South of there would be this wastewater treatment plant access road.
But we used to have a sewer lift station up there by 212. It's been taken out now with our Headworks project a few years ago. But that's a gravel road right now that doesn't connect up to 212. So do you want to talk about any of those conversations with the DOT?
Yeah, when the DOT approached the engineering office about this option, I think it's, well, I'll just state, I don't want to speak for the DOT, but they had other options in mind, and they weren't finding those options. They weren't settling on any agreeable terms with those other options. So they approached the city with this option, and in that discussion, at first glance, we thought, yeah, we can run that to council and see if they'd find that agreeable. But then in another thought, we knew that the owner of Montgomery's Furniture has some potential development plans for this area and a potential extension, permanent extension of 11th Street. So what we wanted to do is, like in any case, rather than throwing good money at bad, if we could prevent the DOT from having to temporarily pave a road for a temporary detour for businesses, maybe they can coordinate with Montgomery's and get a formal permanent extension of 11th Street accomplished through this process. So we've had a preliminary meeting with the DOT and the owners of Montgomery's, and I don't know if all the cards will fall in the right place for that to happen, but it was at least a thought that we're looking at and seeing if we couldn't help accomplish. If not, the plan per this agreement is for the DOT to temporarily pave that gravel road from 212 down to Jensen Avenue.
Okay, and that's currently an outlawed. It's not a right-of-way, and it is city property, but it's not a road right-of-way. Councilman Albertson?
Thanks, Mayor. Heath, just a question. Are they going to do any work on Jensen Avenue, or is it Jensen Avenue assumed it's going to be okay to take this extra traffic without anything being done to it?
Yeah, we would, I believe the intention is that they'd use it as is, but like with every detour agreement, if any damage tends to expand or compound, the state would step in and help remedy that. Just as they did on Phase 1, we had them do some patch paving on one of the detour routes with Phase 1 as well. But the plan is to use it up front as is, Dan, to answer your question.
Councilman Vilhar?
First of all, thanks for discussing this. I was the one that requested this to be pulled off, or not pulled off, but discussed in more detail versus just on the consent agenda. So I wanted the public to start becoming aware of what the plans are as far as the detour for that project. But I still have a question. In the agreement relative to 11th, it says the last clause, to be removed at city request. Okay, I'm a little bit lost what that means.
I think that they're just, again, not to throw good money at bad type of a situation. If for some reason we felt value in retaining whatever they pave and not wanted them to remove it, they'd leave it there for us. I don't know as though that'd be the case, so we would just likely end up requesting them to remove it at that point in time in the future. But they're kind of just leaving the door open for that discussion later on is what I would interpret that to be.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, that's not a road that gets plowed or maintained in any way right now. And if we do leave the pavement, people start driving on it, becomes an expectation that we maintain it. Councilman Y?
Heath, that road from 212 to Jensen, so does that run, will that run on the east side or the west side of the Sears building?
It'd be on the east side of the Sears building, on the west side of the drainage channel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's narrow. There's not a lot of room to plat a regular full right-of-way in that location. But we have driven there. It's full of pipes under the ground. It's an access road we maintain. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll look for action. Oh, sorry, Councilman Hoyer.
Sorry. I guess, are we doing anything to Jensen Avenue prior to this to I just know from driving on the south side of Shopko there, that's like some of the worst potholes in town.
We've worked on those.
Recently,
and,
like last couple weeks?
Well, no, I don't think so. But I don't know that we'd want to do more than temporary repairs.
No, but if we do turn it into a detour, I just want us to make sure we, one, take a look at that ahead of time to make sure it's going to be safe. And then second, maybe consider doing a little bit of repair afterwards because it's seriously one of the
absolutely.
worst sections in town.
Yeah,
They're pretty brutal.
all right. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Is there any old business to discuss? Councilman Hoyer.
So this question just came up through the parking committee, but they had proofs come back from Pheasantland Industries for parking signs, and they're just kind of wondering, should they move forward in the process of purchasing, or is there any budget for them? I passed along an email to Heath just in the last 10 minutes here with the showing of the proof. Basically, there's some different language on them. There's 3 options for language. Basically, do we want to do the free public parking and then a label of where it's at, like what lot, like we talked about, public parking, and then the lot that's labeled there, or else the final one is just public parking, the end, and they can interchange them between them all. I don't know if that's something we want to talk about now, just since
We've got a little bit of time.
keep momentum going, and I
can you
figured
bring
it's
it up?
4:42 right now.
Heath, can you bring it up? Share your screen. Is it on my email too?
No, I passed it directly to Heath, but I can easily take the same message here. There.
There we go.
Now, there would still be the ordinance thing that has to come forward at some point for defining that 72-hour for the public parking, but I think it's just them wanting to know what direction to go down. So like I said, first option says free public parking, and then the name of the lot. Still has that 72-hour removable sign on the bottom for flexibility in case that ever changes in the future, so we can do something else if a council decides. Next one is public parking, same thing with that label. And then the final one is literally just public parking.
I think it would be good to have the name of the lot on there.
I think so too.
at least, and
It's
so
just,
that's what we're kind of asking, which words do we want on there?
I think that's what he's looking for. Me personally, I'm a just plain public parking. I think that's pretty self-explanatory that it's public parking, since we don't have any cash lots anywhere in town. But if others felt like free is needed, that's always an option.
Councilwoman Manty?
Oh, I want to echo that. I think the name on there is good, and even the police department noticed that they can say Midway Lot. It's easier for them to get to that parking lot in a rapid manner. I go back and forth about the free versus not free. I like clean signs too, but you know, one of the things we've been trying to sell downtown is the free public parking. So, you know, I could go either way on it. I just want to make sure we have the names of the lots on there, and then who's going to name the lots if we do that. But the free is the part for me that, you know, I guess I would like other people's opinion on. I could go either way. But.
Anyone else have an opinion? Councilman Holeen?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd probably go with free. Just makes it that much easier for people to know ahead of time. Make it as easy for people to understand as possible, I guess.
And that might be a good idea, because as we grow, who knows, maybe there will be lots you have to pay for. So that's a good forward thinking.
We have talked a little bit about leasing spots in lots, because there are some businesses that park there all the time, 24/7, 364 days a year, and that their spots are not available. So it is a public lot, we can't really stop them from doing that, but.
Right. I mean, with the exception of it having the 72-hour parking limit on it now, That prevents some of the issues we've had in the past with folks leaving vehicles there for like a year. To the point where there's flat tires on the vehicle and it's literally just sitting there.
Well, technically it's 72 hours and it should be moved. If you got a flat tire that hasn't been repaired in 12 months, that's violating that. And-
Right, it took us like a year and a half for somebody to actually complain about it though and get this vehicle moved.
But like, there are businesses right next door that have their business vehicles parked in our public lots.
Right.
Is that something the council feels is okay, or where are they gonna park? It's downtown, they don't have their own parking. They're either gonna be on the street or in one of our lots, so.
Technically, if they're moving in 72 hours,
Right.
they're still within
Yes.
the law, so.
Right.
There's much you can do about it other than if they're willing to.
I'd point out, I don't think we have an actual 72-hour limit on the books.
No, we don't, but we did talk about adding
Right.
that. That's been part of the discussion of the committee.
I think to Councilman Helene's point, I think you have to put it as free parking, that way everyone is aware. Because public parking is public parking, but if you don't know it's free, if you're not from the town, you're like, well, do it pay to park? And
Yeah.
things like that, so.
And that's what we're trying to promote as a benefit of, having all this downtown parking spots that don't get used. And I think that really does say it right there. Free public parking in the Midway lot
Yeah,
for 72 hours. That's, like Reed said, it's pretty clear.
yeah.
Are they looking for us to give them the okay to buy these? Is that what they're?
To move forward down that, probably to just specking it out. I know they're probably concerned about budget, but there's still more conversation that'll have to happen with, if we keep the names on it like this, that we'll have to name lots to figure out what we want to do there, because they're looking to do every public lot in town if we go down this route, just so folks know where they're at and we can better utilize them.
I haven't had an opportunity to talk with Rob, but I'm assuming what they're up against is his annual sign budget didn't account for these signs, so he's just looking at an obvious overrun or not ordering other things that he had planned on doing. And so I'm guessing that's where the approval is coming into play. Again, unless the overall budget balances itself out due to cost savings in other places, it could end up in a supplement to his budget for these signs.
Right, but I think this will help us out with just getting him the ability to even come forward to us with a proposal for budget, because he'll know how many lots he has, and then,
Right.
Like 18 inches by 30 inches is still probably where I'd lean. The bigger we can do these, the better.
Yeah. Councilman Lallam?
I mean, I think they should move forward with it, at least trying to get some more information and bring that forward. I mean, that's one of the downtown initiatives they're trying to do is just, identify public parking and things like that. I mean, with what's going on down there, I mean, it'd be foolish to make them just hold up right now and then, wait for a month and a half, 2 months. So it doesn't make sense to do that. So I'd say have them go out and see what's out there and bring it back.
Well, and I brought it forward just to get it pushed with the council right now, just because I'm sure they're probably a little hesitant with the council changeover of what the expectation is. So if we're all saying keep going, then great, that gives them clarity.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody opposed to moving forward with it? Okay, we'll just tell them to keep plugging away. That looks good. Yeah, and I love the color. All right, is there any other old business? Councilman Vilhauer?
Not old business, but if I can have just a few seconds to make a comment about something. We had talked about sales tax collection here a while ago about running ahead of what we were budgeting. Since you gave the link here a few months ago, Mayor, I've been tracking the online sales tax collection on a monthly basis. For the 7 months, the state breaks that out. We've collected an average of about $84,000 per month. And for the month of April, we collected $111,000. So it's definitely something that is starting to make, be of a benefit to us with that change here a couple years ago.
Right, thank you. Councilman Hoyer?
I'll just echo too, based off of projections of how busy we were last summer versus this summer, we're really upticked right now. Looking at Thursday Night Live, looking at all those events, we are really busier than we were last year. So I would just echo from a ground view that it looks like we're going in a good direction. So glad that we really came together as a community and pushed a lot of these things.
Yeah, me too. Anyone else with old business? Any new business? Councilman Lallam?
Thanks, Mayor. I did reach out today. There was a softball tournament this past weekend out at Cook. Few comments that were made. I passed those on to Heath and Terry and I had a conversation with a couple of members from the county as well about trying to get that parking lot stripped. It was a little bit of a hodgepodge of parking, we'll call it. That would be the polite way of putting it. So I asked Heath if he could take a look at that, and the county didn't know either as far as who's under, the responsibility of getting that striped out so that you can actually identify the parking spots. So I believe there's some research on both sides that's gonna be done as far as how that's gonna work and things like that, but it does represent, I think there's over 60 teams here this weekend.
Wow.
A lot of out of city towns as well, so, it'd be nice to have that done, and, when I checked with someone from the county, it sounded like the last time it was done was 2014.
Okay.
So,
How was it done? Did they do it or did we?
I think MJ Lang did it back then, so they had
Who
something on
contracted?
their records from
I
that.
bet we did. It's partly owned by the city
Yep.
and partly owned by the county, so we probably shared the cost with
Yep,
them.
I'm guessing so, but it's something that probably needs to be done again. I know there's a tournament here in a couple weeks again, I believe right after the 4th of July weekend.
Right.
So if it's a possibility to get it done, I know most of us won't be on the council then, but it is something that would be nice. It does represent our community, and it is utilized, in spring, summer, fall, and winter. So it is a lot easier to park when they, don't go 3 deep.
Sure.
Which is interesting if you're the middle car. But I did see that this last week as well. So just pass that on to Heath, and he was checking, I believe, Terry Kelly, I sent him a text as well, just to give them the heads up. I don't know whose it is, so.
Yeah, well, and it's possible we striped it with our
Yep.
own crews. We have the equipment.
Yep.
So
Yep,
we
and I
maybe
think
did
the
it.
county has something as well, so maybe it's something that they can work together, try to figure that out.
But you're taking care of that, Heath? Okay, thank
So
you.
just as an FYI to the public, it was talked about, and, it's one thing that'd be easy to probably fix.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other new business? All right, there is no reason to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, and there being no further business, I declare the meeting adjourned.